Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special lecture hosted by the distinguished fellow and donor, Sir David Khalili, from the Center for Resilience and Sustainable Development at University of Cambridge. I'm Dr. Nazia Habib, the founder and the director of the Center for Resilience and Sustainable Development. Our center thrives on transdisciplinary approach, blending arts, science, and cultural insight in sustainable, equitable, and resilient future-creating action research. We're very different action research than any other research in the world. And this is an incredible honor to have a transdisciplinary scholar such as Sir David to actually be our first donor in this endeavor of breaking silos, breaking barriers, breaking mind among academics to make research more of a democratic space for evidence creation. And I welcome you tonight to delve into the powerful intersection of art, peace, and dialogue that you will hear today from Sir David's life story. I have read the book, and I must say, I could not put it down. And in fact, by reading that book, I came up with another research idea, which is about creating a new marketplace for sustainable silk. Because Sir David, as a young man, is to have an unusual pet, silk moths. Go figure, why wouldn't he be the one, be this person to do this incredible journey that he will be sharing with us? Sir David's journey meets our journey. Sounds like a happy marriage. Well, in a marriage, there's a lot more relationship happens. Our new relationship with Faculty of Divinity, thank you for the privilege of now doing another exciting project. Also, the idea came from Sir David Khalili's work and his life journey, inspiring diplomats, policymakers, peacemakers to integrate faith-inspired systems tool in their toolbox. And we're very excited that we're applying dynamic systems approach to develop a new generation of geopolitical dialogue and deliberative space building methodologies. In this research, Iona has been quite instrumental to help us connect all the right scholars from the Faculty of Divinity and beyond. This morning, we had an exciting workshop about this research topic where we had applied Cambridge dynamic systems consultation. It's a mouthful of words, but trust me, we're writing a book about that. Soon people will be all naming it and using it. And that's the agenda, and that's the support that we are getting from this second session that we had with our philanthropists and the donors who are thinking about how to change the world. And some of you are sitting here among other guests for tonight. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Professor Richard Rex from Divinity Faculty, whose scholarly work enriches our understanding of faith's role in societal dynamics. See, that word dynamics. His contribution, much like Sir David's, are vital to our collective pursuit of knowledge and harmony. And I believe that introduces Professor Rex to welcome Professor Sir David. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I'm here to introduce Professor Sir David Khalili in my capacity as the chairman of the Faculty of Divinity. We would have welcomed our colleague Esra Ozurek to be undertaking this task, but unfortunately she's unwell at the moment and can't be with us until perhaps a little later in the year again. We look forward to that. There is a phrase we use, citizen of the world, which we can use casually, we can use cynically, but I'd like to just use it, if I may, in its authentic sense to introduce our esteemed guest. There's a real citizenship of the world which transcends the cliche, a citizenship which takes the whole world for its city, for its state, for its patria, and which therefore shows the world that loyalty and even that love which the noble republicans of ancient Rome or medieval Florence felt for the community to which they belonged. And it's this citizenship that is embodied in our guest this evening. In his multifaceted vocations as scholar, author, collector, patron, philanthropist, Sir David has lived that global citizenship by appreciating the creations and the achievements of his neighbours, of his fellow citizens in this world, delighting in the traditional forms and genres of art and beauty of many national and regional cultures, appreciating their multiplicity, their variety, and seeking by writing and by collaboration to share that appreciation and experience, indeed the benefit of that experience with all of us. But more than that, he has shown that loyalty to the world which the good citizen owes to his or her state. In his commitment to promoting peace and understanding among the nations, he lives out that love of God, that love of neighbour, enjoined by the ancient law and by so many of its noblest exponents. He knows that of all those four dread horsemen, war is the one that we bring upon ourselves rather than the one that is visited upon us. He's aware that each and every one of us has that one life, of which war is the most terrible waste. He's also aware that all of us together occupy this one world, of which war, as it were, of which it is most terrible to lay waste. At every level of his many-sided engagements, from UNESCO, the Commonwealth of Nations, the Centre for Resilience and Sustainable Development here in Cambridge, he seeks to promote and to further peace and well-being. His decades of endeavour and engagement and achievement have brought him signal honours, as you all know, but I will repeat them, sparing his embarrassment. Honours academic and civic from all around the world, honorary degrees, honorary fellowships, most recently of CRSD itself, the Knight Commandership of the Papal Order of St. Sylvester, the Officier de la Légion d'Honneur, and most recently a knighthood of this realm bestowed by Her late Majesty. Well, as Nazia has already reminded us, relations between the world's great religious traditions, which all commend and aspire to peace, have not always been, or perhaps are not always, in practice as peaceful as their principles and values would suggest. Sir David's well-known concern to promote amicable and respectful relations between the religious traditions of the world is one which the Cambridge Interfaith Programme is proud to share and in which it aspires to play its own part. It's therefore a particular honour and privilege for us in the Faculty of Divinity and in the Cambridge Interfaith Programme to be able to host Sir David here in the Runcie Room this evening for his lecture on the art of peace. So please join me in welcoming our esteemed guest and lecturer, Professor Sir David Khalili.
I'm sitting there listening, and I'm overwhelmed with your introduction. Thank you very, very much. God be with you. I'm sure that my parents, God bless their souls, are watching me and looking me from above. Many years ago, I used to go to many dinner parties and be invited by friends. And I was always challenged, how did you do this? How did you do that? How did you start collecting? What does it mean? What do you do for humanity? How do you make your money? Why you are using your money to buy art? And I couldn't give them lectures. So about 25 years ago, I decided that I sit down and would write my life story. It took me almost 25 years to put them together, and during the COVID, I said, okay, now it's the time to put them together and share it with the public. I was lost for what to call it. So I called it the art of peace, something that I believed from childhood. And I knew if there is a single hope for humanity to go further on a path of harmony and peace, is through culture of philanthropy, culture of diplomacy, and sharing the art of the word with the word. It boils down to the fact that when sometime I give the exhibitions around the world and show, be it Islamic or Hajj or the enamel or Japanese or any other collection that we have, and share it with the public, I realized that in our 8 collection, we virtually representing 80% of the world population and the culture that they produced. So it boils down to the fact that for almost 55 years, I collected history combined what the history produced. And I realized that to bring the attention of the people to the fact that art can be a magnificent bridge building between nations is the name of the game. When I was 7, 8 years old, I remember that I was a very naughty boy, and my father saw me doing something that I was not supposed to do. So he called me in and he said, I understand that you have a problem going to school. I said, Dad, who told you that? He said, I saw your teacher on the street by mistake, and he told me that for the last 2 months, they haven't seen you. You're leaving home at 8 in the morning and you come back at 5 in the afternoon. Where are you, son? And I said, I don't go to the class because they're not teaching me anything I don't know. I was only 7 years old. So he looked at me, he said, son, you have to understand one thing in life. If you want to succeed, you only have 2 choices. You either use your brain and get where you want to get, or you have to use your hand. It's a time to choose. And I chose the latter. I decided that it's the time to do something that I wanted to do. What I was doing in those 2 months was just walking on a street, looking at the nature, listening to the birds, looking at the forest. At those days, the capital of Iran, Tehran, was absolutely glorious. It was even more beautiful than Paris by some comparison. So that's what I was doing. So I was fascinated by nature. I consider nature to be part of Almighty's creation. There is very little that we cannot make a parallel between nature and Almighty, because at the same time, the Creator has created what He has created. And I decided at the early age that I'm going to make a rule that my relationship in life is going to be with the Creator, not with the creation. So by collecting art and sharing it, I think and I hope that I build that bridge and make it sustainable. Not only building it, making it sustainable. They called me a dreamer, and all of us said there is nothing wrong to be a dreamer. As long as you dream, you plan, and you pursue. If you miss any of them, you don't get what you want to get. So this is the story of the beginning of my childhood. And then I had a small problem with one of my teachers because I used to be a prefect in a class to protect my classmate. And he did something which was disrespectful to the student that he was teaching. So I challenged him. And he tried to fail me in one of my subjects, which was mathematics. Even though I wasn't bad at it, I was very good as a student, just to punish me. I was, I think, early 13. So I went home and I said, I want to prove him wrong. So I decided to write the book in 1 year. It took me 1 year to write it. My parents didn't know, nobody knew, my classmates didn't know because I only sleep 4 hours. So I used to wake up at 4 in the morning, and between 4 in the morning and 8 o'clock in the morning, before going to school, I was writing my book, which was about the geniuses of the world. So this was my first step. And now after almost 65 years or even more, probably 72 years, when I look at the book or I try to read them, I get fascinated with the diction that I used at the age of 14, because these words were not something that I was familiar with, but I was using them. And when people ask me, David, how did you come to write a book of that stature? And I use a very rabbinic answer for a guy who wrote and translated Zohar, Michael Berg. He turned around and said, it wasn't me, it was the pen. So I believed in that, and I started to continue doing what I was doing. I left the country after doing my national service. I went to United States as a youngster in 1967. I didn't know what to do with myself because I only had $750, which wasn't that much those days. So I landed at the New York airport at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. A friend of mine who left Iran prior to me leaving Tehran already was living in a house with the old Polish lady, one room for him, and he got one room for me, which was 3 meters by 2 meters, by the way, with a little cupboard in a corner. I sat down, I had the tea, I put my luggage in the room, and I said, you better go and find a job. I didn't know Queens from Adam. So I walked out, I went to the main road, I looked left, I looked right, and I said, okay, I'll go right and find somewhere. So I went and found a place that was selling hamburgers. And I got myself a job for the following morning at 5 in the morning to go to work. So I started like that, and after 3 or 4 months, after going to school and getting myself familiarized, I realized that there are other things that I can do with the knowledge that I have gained when I was a kid through my father's advice and knowledge. And what I saw, thankfully, I have a bit of a photographic memory, so the memory would have been a good instrument for me to be able to go forward. So I started going around to antique shops. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because 3rd Avenue, 4th Avenue, Park Avenue, downtown, uptown, there were tons of antique shops, tons. And they were next to each other, virtually next to each other. So I started to go to one, and I saw absolute treasures. So I used to buy, let's say, for the sake of argument, 5 or 10 pieces. I kept 2 or 3 for myself, and I sold the rest for 5 or 6 or 10 times more. Now, you're going to ask how a student who just left the country with $750 was able to do that. My father used to sell some of his antique and antiquities to some dealers who used to buy it from him in Tehran and bring it to the United States and sell them. So I went to the people who were a friend of my dad. They knew me from childhood. And I said, listen, I'm going to go to these shops. I'm going to buy. I don't have the means. Would you guarantee me if I give them your name? And 2 of them, one of them didn't have any children. 2 of them looked at me and said, it will be our pleasure. We know you from childhood and you knew your dad. We watch for you. So that became, it didn't last that long because I made money and they were proud of what they saw. So I went, the irony was that I bought, let's say, 5 pieces from this shop for the sake of argument, for $10,000. Then I went to the next shop and sold it for 20. The reason was that they didn't talk to each other. They were rivals. I quickly realized that these people don't talk to each other. There's no communication. They don't share the same passion. They don't visit each other to see what they have. And that became a sort of a gold mine for almost 3 or 4 years. And I remember, I'll tell you this story, and then I continue showing you some of the objects. I had a friend who was a doctor, and he had a Mac 4 Cadillac. So he invited me for dinner one night, and I saw the car outside. And I said, you know something? This is something I want to buy. This is now in 1969, end of 69. I'm just about to go to university. So I went to the Cadillac shop. It was behind the window. I walked in and I said, sir, can I buy this car? And the guy said, yes, come and sit down. I'll tell you what sort of insurance, how you could borrow money. I said, no borrowing money. Cash. I want to drive it out. Anyhow, those days wasn't like that. Anyhow, I bought the car. I'm saying this story for a different reason. I bought the car. I'm driving to go to school, and in a parking lot, by total coincidence, I saw some of my classmates. So they rushed toward me and they said, "You are the smart one. You got a job as a driver for a wealthy man, and you could use his car." So that's the world we were living those days. Anyhow, very quickly, I managed to be able to buy whatever I wanted to buy because I was making insane amount of money by just going around and keeping things for myself. It's not only my book anyhow. And I realized after a while that this talent and the experience should be used. So I tried to do that for something like 10 years or more. And bit by bit, I started to, all the collections that I have and all 35,000 pieces were collected simultaneously. But because I was living in a Muslim country, I fell in love with the culture, not because it was Islamic, because it was diverse, because it was beautiful, because it has a message. It was not a brainchild of one artist like Picasso. It was a brainchild of different nations, fusion of different ideology, fusion of different artisanship. And that attracted me first to Islamic art. And from there, sky became a limit. In many of the lectures I gave, people used to come to me and say, "Can you tell us, how did you manage?" They go to my website and they look at all the collections. They say, "How did you do that?" And I didn't know what to tell them. So I was just discussing it before I came here. So I turned around to them in one of my lectures. And I said, "I'll tell you what, I rented a house on the first floor with a little garden. And I decided, because I love nature, I decided that I want to have a little garden next to my apartment. So I went to the first shop that sells seeds. I bought a handful of seeds. I brought them home. I threw them back in the garden, hoping that I would end up with a nice, small, beautiful garden. As I stand here today, I never thought that I end up with a forest. That is the story of my life. That's how it happened. Now, I'm going to go through objects. I just chose about 25 out of many objects from each collection. I chose a few. The reason is to tell you the story behind it. So we start with, let me just, now what you see on the screen has a beautiful story behind it. I was, I think, 13 or maybe even less. My father used to go to different places to buy art or sell art at the same time. So he came to me and said, I said, "Dad, where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to the house of the ex-minister of culture of Iran, because he collects lacquer, and I want to see if I could either sell him or buy something from him." So I said, "Okay, Dad, I'll come with you." Whenever he went, I tried to accompany him. So I'm sitting around that big table. The gentleman is wearing a beautiful blue suit with a beautiful tie, and my father is being respectful to him too. And as they are discussing the situation of what is on the table, I see this pen box amongst the other pen boxes. So I took it, and I was being fascinated by it. So I started to look at the figures. How many figures? Why is it so crowded? How a person is able to do something of that nature? I had absolutely no knowledge of the subject. I didn't know that this is Alexander the Great with Aristoteles. So I'm just looking at it, and being more and more inspired by what I see. And the gentleman turned around to my father and said, "What your son is doing?" He said, "Oh, that he's just inquisitive. He's trying to look at what is on the table." So he turned around to me and said, "Son, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just looking at many figures on this pen box. They're all different. And I'm just wondering how anybody can do something like that, because if you do oil painting on a big canvas, if you make a mistake, you go back and forth. And oil painting gives you a lot of area to paint. How did these people painted so many figures? That is not very big, as you see, 24 centimeters by 4 centimeters. How did they do that?" And then I came up with the saying. I said, it's very much like you get a horseman who is fantastic showing his skill in a huge field, and put him in a small room, 3 meters by 4 meters, and tell him to do the same trick as he was doing in a stadium. He heard that, looked at me, and looked at my dad and said, Daniel, that was the name of my dad, I'm giving that to your son as a gift. This is my first gift. He has a future. So my dad kept it, and I kept it. And when I started to write the book on the Persian lacquer, obviously what I did, I published that as the first piece that was given to me, not something that I purchased. And as you see, I put a description so you know what the story is behind the subject. That was part of the Islamic collection. Obviously, later on, I show you other objects belonging to other different categories. This table belongs to the enamel collection. We have about 2,000 enamels from all over the world. This table is royal. There is only one more like it, which we discovered in Beijing, in the National Museum, Imperial Museum in Beijing. I was in Paris, and a friend of mine who is a dealer of mine from childhood, I know him. He came to me and said, I understand that you're doing a new penthouse. Why don't I take you to a furniture shop, which is one of the biggest furniture places in Paris. Didi Aaron, the name was. So you may find something and take the photograph and send it to your wife for the house. I walk in, and in the middle of the room, I see that table. I didn't think it was for real. So I don't know how to check. So I turned around to the owner and I said, I understand you're making very nice cappuccinos. Can you kindly make me a cappuccino? So the guy left the room, and immediately I turned the table upside down to make sure there is an imperial signature underneath, which was. So I discovered that it is the imperial piece. And then later on, we found out that there is only another one. So I bought it obviously for this of the value that has today. And now it's a store piece, and it's sort of national heritage of China. I'm in New York in I think it was 1972, 1973. I was going around to different shops. I walked in the shop of this gentleman who was on Park Avenue. He was a big silver dealer. So I'm looking at this, the room, the floor of the shop, and it's full of bits. What he was doing, he has taken this piece apart to clean them and put them back. I'm looking and I said, these objects look like a jewelry. It doesn't look like it belonged to one object. I turned around to him and said, can you show me how it's going to look once you assemble it? And then he took out a photograph, which was virtually an actual size of the piece. I said, this is how it's going to be. So I said, can you tell me how much it is? Anyhow, I bought it. It's about 100 kilograms. And it has been exhibited around the world, including Hermitage in St. Petersburg. And I showed it in a few other places. We have given many exhibitions, about 126 exhibitions around the world of the 6 collection. So that's a beautiful story of that. Now, this coach is about 1,200 kilograms. It's 2,600 pounds. It's made out of silver, enamel, and obviously some metal. But it wasn't nothing like what you see on a screen. It belongs to a big dealer in India. There was a feud amongst the family. So what they did, they dispersed it. So it was in pieces all over the place. Somehow somebody found 80% of it and gave it to Christie. Christie sold it. My dealer bought it. And then I asked him, why don't you go around and find out where the rest are? So it took another 7-8 years to find the rest, including the 4 lamps that goes in the beginning, which are rock crystal. So after finding all the pieces, I went to the people, artisans who are in charge of Her Majesty's coaches for all the celebration, and asked them to find out what was inside with the help of some Indian friends who are academics. And we found out exactly how it looks 100 some odd years ago. And we brought it back to the glory of those days. So that was an exhibition. We went on an exhibition with the Albert Museum. It traveled around the world. And then I received a letter from the director who was in charge of the exhibition. It was the Mughal exhibition of Indiana. And he said, people walked in, they only wanted to see the coach. They are not interested to see anything else. So that was the power of this piece. It's a very powerful piece. Swedish textile. I didn't know what Swedish textile was. We were cataloging our carpets and textile, mostly carpets. And amongst the carpets, and we published 2 volumes on them. Amongst the carpets, I found the one that you see on the screen. And I said, what that can be? This doesn't look like Persian gleam. It doesn't look Oriental. It looks Oriental. What could it be? And one of my dealers turned around to me, the guy who sold me most of my early carpets and textile, said, a lady by the name of Doris Blau is here. She's the best expert in Persian carpet. Why don't we ask her to come and find out what the date and the origin of the piece? We invited her. She came from before we even opening it. And now we prepared the microscope and this and that for her to check. So she said, you don't have to open it. This is Swedish. I said, I'm sorry? What do you mean Swedish? I've never seen anything like it. He said, it doesn't exist anywhere else except in Sweden. The biggest collection of this textile is in Sweden, in the museum, about 100 pieces. So I said, do you have any? She said, yeah, I've been collecting. I have about 15 of them. I said, can I buy them? So I'm standing and having conversation with her about the 15. And it took me another 25 years to buy the rest, to make it about 105. And we published it and we exhibited. Now, when I exhibited in Sweden first, and it went down very well. But then in Paris, I had the exhibition of that during the Biennale, I think about 20 years ago. I didn't want to go to the exhibition because I thought for 60, 50 pieces of Swedish textile, who's going to come and see it? At the last minute, I said, okay, I'll go. I'm going to see the exhibition and I see crowd. So I said to the driver, we're in the wrong place. He said, no, this is the place that you asked me to take you. So I go up and there are film cameras and tons of journalists. I said, what these people are doing here? I saw them all being busy photographing. So I went to one of them and I said, there is a Picasso, Renoir, X, Y, Z exhibition in town. Why are you here? And he turned around to me and said, we are tired of seeing those. Enough is enough. This is brand new and it's as good as Picasso. I said, thank you. So that's the power of these pieces. So this was the piece that day. This is another one. You see how magnificent it is. It was made by the bride when they got married, either for the bedspread or for the cushions in the coach when they went to church. So it was a token of love and affection for the marriage. And that attracted me too. And this is another one. This is the reindeers. It is very, very much like the Persian gleam, but it's Swedish. So that is Swedish textile. In 1971, I was in Church Street in London. I had no idea what the Spanish damascene work was. So I saw the pair of vases, which I'm going to come to in a minute, behind the window of a dealer. So I walked in. After 5 minutes, he explained to me what it was. I said, they look Islamic, they look Moorish. They said, yes, but this is Moorish influence, but it's done by an artist in Spain called Zuluaga. So I said, can I buy them? I bought that from him. And then, like everything else I do, I try to get to the bottom of it to see what else is available around the world. So I ended up to put together probably the biggest collection of Zuluaga in the world. We had a magnificent exhibition at the Bikulanobit Museum. But the casket that you see was sitting in Fort Hill House, as I explained it there, for probably, they call it Fort Hill casket, for something like 100 years maybe. Morrison, who was his patron, Zuluaga's patron, made that for him. It weighs almost a ton. So my dealer telephoned me and he said, you have a opportunity of a lifetime to buy something of the most magnificent stature for the Zuluaga collection, and this is a star piece. He threw a number at me those days, which was a telephone number, but obviously I bit the bullet and I bought it. And that is part and a star piece of the Zuluaga collection, and the exhibition and the catalog was at the beach at the Victorian Albert Museum. These are the pair of the vases that I saw first with the Moorish influence. It is magnificently done. In actual fact, he wrote, he went through a big bad phase in Spain. He was almost going bankrupt, Zuluaga. So he wrote a letter to Morrison because he was his biggest patron. And he said, I need so much, he put the numbers, so much gold, so much this, so much that, and I'll be at your disposal. Please keep me in business. So he did incredible objects for Morrison. And this is one of them, and casket is another one. And this is the third one. Again, I have dealers who are covering all the sort of objects of different collection and different objects that belongs to them. A dealer of mine called me from Sotheby's in New York and sent me the photograph of this and said they're selling it at the French cabinet. I said, can you go there and show me with your phone? So I want to see how it looks. So I knew that it was Zuluaga because I had something similar. So I quickly told them to go and buy it. And when I published them, Sotheby came to me and they said, why didn't you tell us? I said, excuse me, you are charging the client 25%, the people who give you object 5%, you are charging them 30%, you should give them a service. You should do your homework, but you didn't do your homework. It's a bad luck for you and good luck for me. So we called it the Khalili cabinet. In actual fact, we found out later that maybe Morrison used that as a cabinet for his coins because he was collecting coins. Now, Japanese, like everything else in life, I did it in Islamic, I did it in many other collections too. There are pieces which have been separated when they were made. These panels were made as 2 sets of 4 because it's 4 seasons. It's by a major artist, Ando. I bought the first one in London in about early 80s. And late 90s, I was in New York and I was going around and there were only one dealer selling Japanese. So I found the other one. So after almost 90 years, or close to 100 years by now, because that was 20 some odd years ago, I brought them together as a pair. And that has been exhibited around the world as a pair. The first exhibition of Meiji art, Japanese art that we gave was at British Museum in 1994. So we gave them a magnificent exhibition. In actual fact, Sky Art did a film about the exhibition at that time. So that was at the entrance of the exhibition at the British Museum. And I always tell a beautiful story. Let me tell you a story about this first. This is by a very famous imperial artist called Chikuchi. Just to tell you how Japanese tradition works, he wanted to do this piece, but he wanted to make sure that the eagle that is on the top would be cast the same way that he can see it. So he lived with the eagle for 2 years in his house to get familiar with the movement of the eagle to make this, right? So, but by total hazard, it was offered to me, and I found out that during the war, the museum in Berlin was bombed, and the restorer came and restored the museum. They couldn't pay him, so they gave him the Japanese piece as a gift. So when he passed away, it went to the son, and then we bought it and put it in a collection. So every piece has a little story attached to it. This is one of, probably, according to me and according to many other people, this is one of the wonders of the world. They are almost 8 feet high. Imagine a kiln to put an enamel of that size inside. How many times they had to waste? Because nowadays, for every color, you have to put the object in the kiln once. If it is 4 colors, 4 times. If it is 5 colors, 5 times. And you don't always get the result that you are expecting. So the special kiln was made for the size of these pieces to be made. It took 5 years. The emperor came to see the artist after they finished. And in the exhibition in 1893, It was at the exit of the museum. By the way, those days, in about 1893, at the end of 19th century, this sort of exhibition used to attract 20 million people, 25 million people, 30 million people. The French exhibition, 30 million people went to see it when the population of France was 32 million. So that is how popular this huge exhibition used to be. So I bought the one on the left first from the collector in Los Angeles. About 15 years later, I was told that the middle part, the one in the middle, is in the museum, was given as a loan to the museum in Japan for 30 years, 40 years. The loan period finished, and the family are selling it in a Sotheby's, in a Christie's auction. So I woke up at 3 in the morning to make sure that I'd be there on the phone to buy it. Now I'm missing the other one, and I don't know where it is. I was in south of France, and a friend of mine telephoned me, and he said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "The third piece is an Italian restaurant in California." It's a centerpiece of the restaurant. I said, "Okay, go and talk to them and see what we can do." He went and they said, "Whoa, hold it. This is not for sale. We sell our sale for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 50% of it is because people want to come and see this. We are not selling it." I offered them a pair of vases in return. I said, "Just name your price." They wouldn't sell. I gave up. But fate is with you. Almighty is with you. He's the best judge of what he wants, what is good for you. After a few years, I received a telephone call that the restaurant, which was a chain of Italian restaurants, it was only one on its own, they have gone bankrupt. And the people who bought the chain want to sell the piece, so they put it in a sale. So I had to buy it for a fraction of a price that I was prepared to pay when originally I discovered it. So I bought the three of them, put them together, and now you see, 100 and some odd years ago, it was at the entrance of the exhibition, which about 20 million went to see, and now I got them all back together as one set. The Japanese are known to be one of the wonders of the world when it comes to art. Be it enamel, metalwork, porcelain, and textile was something that I was not familiar with. During the opening of Japan, when the Meiji art tried to flow out of Japan and come to the West, they won gold medal, 10 of them, 20 of them, 30 of them in every exhibition that they gave around the world. So they were virtually toast of a town, all right? And they were challenged. They said, your country has been closed to the rest of the world for over 200 years, and now you're appearing and you're creating art that is unknown to humanity. How do you do that? You're only little people. And the answer of one of the artists was, "We might be little, but we create giant of art." And this is one of the ones that you see in front of you. It's a technique that it is virtually magical. It's a silk embroidery, all right? The background is silk. The black part that you see is velvet. So they do silk on velvet. So imagine that they have woven this. This is like a painting. The face is totally covered with velvet. That they take a very sharp instrument and cut velvet through, making sure they don't rip the back, which is holding the velvet. And by cutting virtually epsilon by epsilon, they create what you see, which looks virtually like a Botticelli painting. It is not. It's silk embroidery. And we're very fortunate because then I went to town and I bought whatever I can buy. So the book is coming out this year. I bought 400 of them. I received a call from Van Gogh Museum one day, and he said to me, we are doing the letters of Van Gogh, and we found many letters. that Van Gogh talks about Meiji art and Japanese art. I said, like what? He said, in one of his letters to his brother Theo, he said, in a way, all my work is based on Japanese art. This is Van Gogh, and many others in appreciation, because he was familiar. He was in Paris. He used to go to the shops that they were selling Meiji art. So as a gift to his mother, they never had any money, most of them. So for the first time in their life, they bought a little enamel vase from the same shop and gave it to their mother as a birthday gift, which is now in Van Gogh Museum. So they telephoned me and they said, how about you bringing your Meiji art and we put our paintings side by side and we have an exhibition in Van Gogh Museum at the same time as our highlight exhibition of the year that we'll have. So we joined forces with them. So on the right is a Van Gogh painting, and on the left is the vase that I have. That then you see why he said that in a way all my work is based on Japanese art. We eventually broke the record because they told me that for 3 months they usually get 250,000 people coming to see the exhibition. For our Meiji exhibition in partnership with Van Gogh, we have 350,000 people. So it was extremely, extremely successful. And this goes back again to what I said. Only through arts, only through culture, only through philanthropy, only through diplomacy, using culture, you could capture the heart of people and change their mind, because they see things that belongs to their culture and they question themselves because they don't know that it belongs to them. When I started to give the exhibition of Japanese, the Japanese used to tell me, is it something that our ancestor made? There was a vase in the British Museum exhibition. And at the opening, I see a young man kneeling next to the vase, crying. I thought if something was wrong. I went and pat him on the back and I said, excuse me, why are you crying? He said, for the first time, I see what my grandfather has made. They were telling me that my grandfather was a great artist. And for the first time, I see his work. So for the exhibition, not for the Van Gogh, for the one at the British Museum, I was told at the last day that somebody very important wanted to come and see the exhibition. So I said, come around. So we went, it was packed. I made my way and I stood in front of the piece that my friend wanted to see, which was magnificent lacquer panel. As I'm explaining the lacquer to him and people were robed behind me, I saw somebody tagging my jacket. So I looked back, I didn't see anything. Second time, I looked back and it was a little girl, 5 years old maybe. I said, young lady, what can I do for you? So she looked up, a beautiful little girl. She looked up and said, sir, can you please move? I want to read the label. I froze and I said, you know something, David? You're on the right track. Because you need not only your generation, but you need to inspire the new generation. Because no torch would stay alive unless you hand it over to the right people. So this is another side of collecting that can be enhanced to bring joy, harmony, unity, understanding, and knowledge to humanity. We have a large collection about, we are doing two volumes. The first one was out about 10 years ago. We have about 420 kimonos, which start from 1700 to virtually 1950s. So we are covering the whole area. The first volume is out, it's the second volume. Again, for the first time when I saw them, I virtually found a fascination with what these people used to make. The one on the left, the blue one, has a national anthem of Japan on it. We didn't know till we started cataloging it. We realized that there is a writing on it in Japanese. And then we realized that this is the national anthem of Japan written on it. Now we're coming to the Islamic. I had many dealers going around buying. I can't cover everything, obviously not. There are hundreds of auction houses around the world, and I can't be everywhere. So I had my spies watching for me. So I was on holiday, and if this friend of mine telephoned me, who I knew, he was a jeweler, and he said, you better come to London, I have something for you. I knew that could be something important. So took a couple of days, I came. He came with this emerald box, which is not very big. It's definitely Shah Jahan period and definitely belonged to him, but politically we cannot say 100% Shah Jahan, but the date is, that date that is one of a kind. This is the only one that exists in the world. Inside is green enamel too. So I said to him, where did you get that from? He said it was in a pre-Columbian sale of Sotheby's. And they were selling it as pre-Columbian, thinking that what is on it is glass. I said, what did you pay for it? Well, he paid very little. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? So he threw a number, a telephone number, but I had no choice. So I said, can you give me a bit of room downward rather than upward? So he looked at me and he said, if you ask that question one more, I'll go to the next client. I said, whoa, hold it, I'll take it. So this, whenever we exhibit this, all the ladies who come to the exhibition, and that has been at least to 40, 50 different Islamic exhibitions around the world, they gather around this and they read the story and the history of it. And he was the one who built Taj Mahal, so it is tremendously connected. Harmony, unity between two communities, Jews and Muslims. This 13th century astrolabe is Judo-Arabic. There is one of only 5 in the world, so there is one and there is another 4 somewhere else. Judo-Arabic was invented by a big rabbi called Rabbi Gaon in the 10th century, because at that time, Jews and Muslims lived together in peace and harmony. They virtually worked together. They used to call themselves, as I called it, cousins. We are family. We are one family at the end of the day. Jews, Muslims, Christians. It's like looking at the magnificent tree, enjoying the what is on the branches, knowing that the root is the same. The branches may be different, but the root is the same. So this is what I've been trying to do all my life. Soon I'm coming to the saying that I put in my book about that. So here I wanted to show you that there was partnership between the two. It wasn't that they called each other anything but respect. In actual fact, 1/3 of the beginning of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, is about the history of Judaism. It's about Moses, about Jesus, about Joseph, about the Abraham. I mean, it is virtually in a praise of Judaism. So these are the things that the world has to know, to realize that we have to look at this to each other's eye with a lot of respect and understand that we are coming from the same source. And Abraham is the father of all of us. The story of this book is very interesting. It's Jamul Tawarikh, the history of the world, written by a wazir of Muslim ruler. They called him Amir al-Mu'minin, commander of the faith. So he had somebody who became his right-hand man and his prime minister. He was a 30-year-old Jewish guy who converted to Islam. And he became one of the most important patrons in the history of Islamic culture and Islamic art. He created 2 ateliers, writing the history of world illustrated, had never been translated, in Arabic and Persian. We are trying to do that. It is in 2 parts, only left in the world. One part is in Bullion in Scotland, and the other part belonged to a museum in London. And they went through a bit of hard times, so they wanted to sell it, so they sold it in 1980. It was bought by a friend of mine, and later on I went in the 1990s and bought it back from him. It was the most expensive Islamic manuscript ever sold at the time. But the story of his life is very complicated. He did tremendous amounts. He promoted Islamic art and culture and art history throughout Baghdad and Tabriz and everywhere else. But jealousy and envy took its revenge. So they framed him and they wrote a letter in Hebrew that he tried to assassinate and poison the king. Obviously, it was all fabricated. So they killed his son in front of him first, Then they beheaded him and took his head around the town and said, this is the head of a Jew. So it shows that ignorance, as I said it many times, the biggest weapon of mass destruction is ignorance. Ignorance is more powerful and more dangerous than an atomic bomb because it flies and destroys. So again, that shows that we do need to inform people. We do need to tell people the fact. We do need to be transparent. We do need to sit down and communicate, because without reasoning, we cannot go forward in life. So this is one of the most misunderstandings that happened in history. And the most ironic part of it is that it was produced by a Jew and then ended up with a Jew. So after 800 years, it goes around, and now I'm sharing it with the rest of the world. It is called one of the most important illuminated Islamic manuscripts in the world. There are about 100 miniatures in it. 20 of them are that size. There was an exhibition at Metropolitan Museum of Art of Islamic metalwork, and we lent them this piece, which is almost unique. But again, the beauty of this piece is that it was the patron of the piece was Christian. They were priests from a church. They ordered a Muslim artist to produce a piece which is Christian. And it is, as you see it on the top, combination lock. And we did a bit of research and we realized that Da Vinci was inspired by the artist who produced this 300 years before him with a drawing. We have an article on our website to talk about that. Again, about peace and harmony. This is a page from probably a book or an illustrated manuscript. In it, you see the giant ooze, and then behind him, you see Jesus and Moses. The story of it is the family of the prophet. The story of the story of it is very funny. I was working with Robinson, and I saw this photograph in the book which was published in 1930s, and I said, "Where is that miniature?" And Robinson said, "I've never seen it for years. I don't know where it is. I only saw it in the research book." By total fluke, I bought a collection of miniatures from a collector in the United States, and this was amongst them. So now I'm using it for the common faith story, to tell the story that even then they knew that we are all son of Abraham. We are all one family. So we are all coming from the same place, and we do have to respect each other. There was no conflict those days when they made these miniatures. They respected each other as they should. This is probably one of the earliest panorama of Mecca. This is part of the Hajj collection that is around. So the son of, the daughter of Aurangzeb was one of the patrons later to send the artists to travel with people who went to Mecca for Hajj and illustrate the Hajj when he's with them. So he sat down in front of Hajj at the time, in that date that you see, which is about 1845, and did it virtually eyewitness, stone by stone and house by house. And the story of this is very interesting too. It was offered to Sotheby's. Sotheby's didn't want to put it in a sale. They wanted to have a private sale. So they called me, the chairman called me. I went to Sotheby's. He said, "I'm told to offer it to you first. And if you say no, it goes to such and such other collector, which I know." So I had to buy it, obviously. And it was the cover of our Islamic exhibition, which traveled around the world, called The Art of Islam. Hajj. A story of a curtain that decorates the Kaaba goes back to Mamluk time. Mamluk started it, but we don't have anything from that period. Ottomans, who were the custodian of the place, they started to produce these. They were at the time in Egypt, produced this in Egypt, Syria, and Turkey. This is the second earliest sitara that was made. They usually used to make one, but about 200-300 years ago, they realized that sometimes they may get lost or don't get to the destination, so they made two. So this is one of the second earliest sitara that we have. We have about 22 of them in the collection. If you read what is said about this miniature, it tells you a beautiful story that even Alexander the Great went to Mecca and he visited it. It shows you that the place was already a couple of thousand years before Islam a place of harmony and pilgrimage. So that was at the British Museum exhibition too. These sort of stories enhance the fact that it doesn't matter how we looked at different religion. It shows that even people who call themselves and conquered half of the world still realize that they are mortal and they follow a place of harmony and peace, which is Mecca, which is called the city of Abraham, by the way, because the Maqam Ibrahim is just virtually, the place of Abraham is virtually next to Mecca. The word Mahmal was virtually unknown for years. Nobody knew what Mahmal was till I started to discover them. This is like a little house. It's a statement of ownership and custodianship of Mecca. Whoever was in charge of Mecca used to have to make that, to carry the sitara to Mecca. So they put that on a camel, and that followed with tremendous amount of people following it for blessing. And then they took it to Mecca. Unlike the sitara that was made every year, there are only 10 or 12 of these exist in the world. Why? Because they reuse them. They don't use them only once, they reuse them. So we have about 5 or 6 of them. And that has been exhibited too. It was at the exhibition of Hajj at British Museum about 12 years ago. And finally, Aramaic. In early 70s, I was told that exactly like the Geniza that I went to visit, and the one that are in Israel, a farmer was in Afghanistan in a cave and found a group of parchment. Didn't know what it was and sold it to different collectors, different dealers. It was spread around the world. It took me 25 years to buy them one by one, write a book called Aramaic, the document, by 2 of the greatest academics in the world. And on this document, we discovered, for the first time in history, on the 7th year of his reign, the name of Alexander. His name was not Alexander. His name was Alexandrus. And then it was adopted in Arabic and in Persian and in English to Alexander. All right? So the only document that exists anywhere in the universe that has his first name in Aramaic during the 7th year of his reign is on this document. I hope I've said enough. I took you on a fast track to show you about the 7 collection. But before I finish, I'm going to have a little surprise for you. If you see my book one day and you read it, I decided and I challenged, because I write in Arabic, obviously. I challenged my Muslim friend and I said, can you tell me 5 times a day you pray? Am I right? They said, absolutely. I said, do you know what you are saying? And they looked at me and said, oh, it's a verse. I said, can you just recite it? So they recite me the verse that they say 5 times a day. In Arabic, I don't read it for you, but I tell you the translation. O Allah, send your mercy on Muhammad, on the family of Muhammad, as you send your mercy on Abraham and on the family of Abraham. For you are the most praiseworthy and the most glorious. Who is the All Abraham? Who is the family of, who is the house of Ibrahim? House of Ibrahim are the Jews first. the Christian second, and Muslim third. It's for the first time that in any religion, you see a verse by the prophet to say, don't be inward, don't be inward thinking. Think of all as one. It's the only prophet of the three holders of the book, Prophet Muhammad, who says, pray for the Jews, pray for the Christian, and pray for the Muslims. That is the Islam the world has to know. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I hope I didn't bore you.
Thank you very much,
Pleasure.
Professor. We have led people to expect that you might be willing to answer a few questions.
Pleasure.
And if you would, then,
Pleasure, no problem at all.
then in a moment, pausing only to.
Am I on time? I didn't go over time.
The time is yours.
All right.
The time is yours. But I can't see it from here because of the glare. Yeah, we certainly have, I think, 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah.
Pleasure. Anybody has any question, most welcome.
Iona, do we have a microphone for?
There are two microphones.
They are in hand. They are in hand. I must stand aside because I'm blinding my sector.
Thank you.
For a moment, anything, but I would like to invite anyone who wishes to ask a question to indicate that the microphone will be brought to you. We have a question over here first, I think.
Thank you very much, Professor Khalili, for your lecture. I found it really interesting and extremely wide-ranging. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much. My question is about the jade casket, the jewel casket. Do you know what it might contain? Because I am a PhD student and I'm studying.
You're talking about emerald?
Yeah, the emerald
emerald
casket.
box, yeah.
Yes. I'm a PhD student and I'm studying Iranian art and specifically the sense of smell in Iranian art. And I think I have some ideas about the small caskets or different type of containers that might have contained perfumes, but that's just an idea. So I was wondering if in your studies or if you ever encountered what these small boxes would actually contain.
Exactly. You know, the Indians have the tendency of having these perfume stuff that they either sniffed, mostly sniffing. It was fashionable, very fashionable during the Mughal period. So probably that was a real box where they kept those sniffing powder inside. And it was made for either him, which I think probably was, or somebody in his court, because there is nothing like it anywhere in the world. I went to India. I published two volumes, one volume on Indian miniature, and one volume is on Indian jewelry, okay? So I took the book to India. They didn't believe that they let this thing go out for the last 100 years, because it belonged to the Nawabs, it belonged to the individuals, and India was in a bit of a disarray to start with. So they took them out to the West, and it went to different collectors, to different people. I was very lucky to be able to buy some in India, some in Europe, some in America, and bit by bit, in 50 years, to create probably one of the largest Indian jewelry collection that exists in the world. And this is a start piece of that, plus a hookah that I have, which is about 3.5 kilos of enamel and gold, which is again unique. And that was definitely made for the ruler of one of the Indian colonies.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Question at the back there, and then just in front.
Thank you for your talk. It's clear that you have such a wide range of interests within the historic arts, and I was wondering whether there's any particular area which you potentially now looking back wish you'd had sort of explored more, or were you able to sort of indulge in all your passions across your life?
Passion is the best drug in the world. If you want to succeed, you have to follow, I think it is Oscar Wilde. He said, life without passion is like fire without a flame. You want to succeed? Doesn't matter what passion is, follow it. You get that.
Professor, your collections have been shown in so many of the great global museums, and yet you get a sense now that going forward there's a much greater demand on the countries from whom these extraordinary objects have emerged, that they should be repatriated and be part of their own national heritage and story. Do you think the era of the global museum is slowly coming to an end?
It shouldn't. This is in actual fact a very interesting subject to address. Fortunately, none of the things that we have falls into that category because we didn't collect any antiquities. This is all things that's like buying Picasso, like buying Monet. It doesn't fall into the category. But what you said is a very interesting question. We invited Dalai Lama to come to Suez to give a lecture. And he wanted to have coffee with me before. So I sat down with him. And I said, we have people here that are going to ask you about Tibet, about what happened to Tibet. Be prepared. We just wanted to prepare him. He said, like what? So I explained, they may touch on all the art that left Tibet. He said, no problem. He's standing, giving his speech. And a student got up and said, how about all the beautiful Tibetan objects that was taken out of Tibet and now is in different museums and different collections? And he turns around and said, I'm over the moon. And the whole audience went flabbergasted. What do you mean you're over the moon? He said, nobody knew about Tibet. These pieces were sitting in a monastery. Nobody knew who we were. Now the world knows what we have produced. I prefer to have ambassadors in different parts of the world than sitting at home on my own. Without these pieces being in museums, you don't know what would have happened to them. This ideology of give it back and take it back, this is a dream. What for? If the marble were sitting in Greece, it would have been turned into dust today. At least millions of people going and appreciate the culture of that country. The Museum of the World were contributor to culture and humanity. Stop being, you give me back, you give me, to do what with it? You give it back and end up in their basement somewhere. We have to come out of this very bad idea of repatriation. I'm not for it at all, because I think it should be put on display to show the glory of those countries. Some of them have no name even. They don't know where these pieces are coming from. All of a sudden they say that was made in Senegal in such and such a tribe. All of a sudden that tribe gets food, gets tourists. People go and see them. If they don't do that, you won't go there. So my analogy differs to others. And I think the Museum of the World have contributed a lot to the enhancement of the prestige of the countries where the pieces are being housed by them. I hope I answered your question.
You have, and I agree entirely. Thank you.
Question.
I've got a question from one of our online audience members. So on behalf of Justina, she says, thank you for this wonderful tour across time and cultures. I am curious to know what Professor Khalili's next goal is in this amazing quest.
I was asked if you have a chance ever to go to my website. Sky Art did a documentary of my life. And at the end of the documentary, it was in my apartment, I was asked exactly the same question that this lady is asking me. And I turned around and I said, my rules are very simple. When you get to my age and you think you have achieved what you have achieved, you have to promise yourself to go forward on 4 different bases. Look after yourself, look after your family, do your charity, and be kind to people, and collect human being. That is the hardest art to collect. Nowadays, the world is mad. We are living in a very complex universe. If tomorrow Jesus arrived and said, You ask me to come as a savior, I'm here. You have two schools of thoughts. People come upon thousands and said, hold your horses. Miracle. And he says, what sort of a miracle you want me to do? They say, we take you to the sea and we want you to walk on the water like you did, as it is indicated in the New Testament. He said, take me. They take him to the sea. The divers go first to make sure there is no glass, there is no cheating, there is no magic. And Jesus walks fluently on the water. One group would say, the Savior is here. The other group would say, leave it alone. The reason he's walking on the water because he cannot swim. That is the answer to your question, and then the world we live in today.
Do you have time for another question?
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for the wonderful talk. I'm just wondering I believe these beautiful artifacts are selected carefully among all other potential artifacts. What is your philosophy in carefully picking these artifacts in selecting them into your collection? Thanks so much.
Pleasure. In actual fact, when we were outside, somebody asked me, you have 35,000 pieces and you have different homes. How many of them are in your homes? And I said, none. They said, what do you mean none? I said, not in a single piece. Not one piece of the collection are seen anywhere in our homes for two reasons. First of all, you need a special condition, this and that, so I'm not prepared to do that. And secondly, from the day I started to collect, I said, the word ownership is a myth. Nothing belongs to anybody. We are only a temporary custodian of what we think we own. If we have that view and say to ourselves, after 120 years, when I'm taken to my grave, I'm under not any illusion that there is a safe deposit box there. So do what you can for humanity while you can. Because legacy can be made. It cannot be bought. You have to have a heart that tells you to do good for others. And if only we are a tiny bit nicer to our neighbors, we have a by far better world to live. Thank you.
Colleagues and guests, Sir David has provided, I think, his own conclusion here, so there's no need for me to do anything more than to remind you that upstairs there are some refreshments awaiting those who are prepared to stay, and perhaps we can just join in one final round of applause.
Thank you.
For Sir David.